All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the Krista and Ed Show. We are so excited. We actually have a real life giant with us. Mm-hmm. His name is Nic Fitzgerarld. Some people say that they don't really exist, giants, not Nics. There's lots of Nics out there in the world. But everyone who actually meets Nic would actually tell you differently. He is 6'9". Oh my gosh, he definitely stands out in a crowd, and he always has. In 6th grade, if you can imagine this, he was already 6 feet tall.
That's a foot a grade.
Yeah, that's awesome. His freshman year of high school, he was 6'5", and needless to say, basketball was his life growing up. I'm sure everybody wanted you on their team too. I bet you never were the last guy to be picked.
Never had that problem.
No.
I always was in basketball.
Too.
Anyways.
It's okay. He quickly became a varsity star as a freshman and was one of the top 200 players, oh my God, in the country before he was a senior. He went on to play Division I basketball at Southern Utah University and played in the ABA and CBA for a couple of seasons after college. Nic has lived the typical entrepreneur lifestyle, working for other people, not being fulfilled in his work, and eventually walking away from corporate America to start his own thing.
We can relate.
Yeah. Though it took him longer than he would have liked to finally listen to that inner voice. I want to talk about that inner voice, telling him to follow his dreams. He credits the struggles he went through for helping him become what he is today, a storyteller. Disclaimer, he actually wrote this bio, but it's so good that I actually have to read it. That's how good of a story.
It's like, this is juicy, this is juicy. It's like, we can weed out this paragraph.
I'm not changing it. Okay, let me finish. There's more, guys. So, as the founder of Friendly Giant Films, he helps businesses and entrepreneurs build relationships through their audiences through emotional storytelling using film and video, with 13 guys, that's so awesome, feature films, 2 television series, lots of commercials, and shooting news stories for the NPPA's West Top Station of the Year under his belt. He's learned from master storytellers about how to connect with people through storytelling, and now he strives to help others find and tell their own stories. Nic is married to Liesl.
You got it. You got it.
I know.
Yes, she's going to see it and be our friends.
Lisa.
Nailed it.
Together. They have 4 crazy kids. We have 4 as well, so we could totally relate to this, ranging from ages 4 to 14. And Nic lives in Salt Lake City, Utah. So welcome, Nic. I know that was a huge mouthful, but I mean, it's all such amazing stuff, and I wanted to make sure that we share that because you're a big deal. Like, you're a big deal.
Yeah, you're
only physically, right? Only physically.
Yeah. So why don't you
Oh, sorry. Thanks for having me. It's so awesome to be able to talk with you guys today. So appreciate it.
Thank you. So why don't you just, tell us a little bit about yourself, if there's anything left there, and tell us what you do.
It's like, we're done. Thanks.
I'm good. No, just I've just throughout my journey, like you talked about, the inner voice is such a huge thing that I've learned, especially over the last 3 years, to really listen to and to follow. And so with what I do, helping people tell stories, but also in general, just one of the things I love doing is helping people realize that they can listen and they should listen to that voice when they hear it, and to not be afraid of what it tells you or where it guides you. So that's my biggest thing that I love to do.
Yeah. And that inner voice is, oh man, it's so powerful. It is so real. And it's sometimes not until you go through things and you look back and you go, oh, that voice was there and I knew I should have listened. Right. Yeah. So,
and some people ignore their inner voice for a long period of time, not naming myself, but yeah.
That's how it was for me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, by storytelling, I guess, it's so interesting to me because it's actually, I've been trying to work really hard right now, especially since we're going into business together, of pulling out our stories online, because, you know, when you have a business that's in person or brick and mortar, sometimes like you can walk into a restaurant, you know, within the first few minutes if you like the place, right? There's a smell, there's atmosphere, there's all of these things that tie into that. So online, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes to really, you know, get your story out there or the wording and grab the attention so that people can feel those same things. So that's what you do really through video, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I love combining, you know, elements of story with music and visuals and all those things. When you put them all together, it's super powerful. Like I talk about a lot that audiences remember a powerful story. Like you think back to any experience that you've had, or that, whether it was a historical event or, you know, your wedding or the birth of your children or whatever it might be, you remember the sights, the sounds, the smells, the people you were around, the way that you felt. And so finding ways to quantify and put those things into something that's tangible to communicate to other people is so powerful, because, you know, when it comes to storytelling, humanity and history is storytelling, right? Everything's passed down from generation to generation because somebody was there and experienced it, and they shared their story and it touched somebody else's heart, and then they took it to their tribe, and it keeps going, right? So when it comes to telling your own story and thinking about it, one thing I find in common with a lot of people is they don't believe that they have a story. They're like, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom, or whatever it is. Like, even if you have, I've talked to some people like, oh, I own like 10 restaurants, or, you know, and I'm like, you only own 10 restaurants, right?
Yeah, no big deal.
People don't believe that they have an interesting story to tell. So one, realizing that you do have a story and that it can have impact in at least one person's life for good, right? And then just finding a way to kind of get past that. A lot of people get self-conscious, especially if a camera's put on them, you know, that kind of thing. People clam up or close off. But finding your medium, like mine is visual, and I like to write, and I play music and stuff too. I kind of, anything creative I just love. But some people, you know, podcasting, that's their voice, or video is their voice, or blogging or typing out articles, that's their voice. So just if you can find the channel that you're most effective and you can really express things down to where you think about, not necessarily saying, telling the story of like the ABC happened to me. It's more like, this happened and I remember I felt this way, or I had that gut reaction where I was like, I need to go, or I need to do this and I need to do that. And describing those kinds of things are the things that really connect with people on an emotional level. And that builds relationships and strengthens people's, you know, relationship to you or your brand if you're a business, or if you're dating, you know, you're telling stories, you're getting to know each other, you're telling each other your life story, right? Yeah. And we all know that it's super impactful, and lifelong relationships are formed from it. So when it comes to helping people tell stories, those are the kinds of things that I like to help people realize and to look at in their own lives. So
yeah, and I think that's so powerful what you said, that everybody has a story. And I know for me and for us, we're really just, you know, exploring that right now and realizing that. And it's actually pretty therapeutic to go through the process, because it actually forces you to also be vulnerable, right? And like those raw emotions that we bury and we don't sometimes want to show or tell, but it's part of your story. Right? That's what connects other people to you, and they can relate to you. So I absolutely love what you're doing. I think I told you this before, briefly on Facebook, but I've kind of stalked you a little bit, and it's so funny because we were at the event in Boise, and I saw you, right? Well, obviously, because you're the tallest guy there.
Right.
No, but I was like, and it
looks interesting.
It was actually after that event when I started like, who was that guy? Because there was something about your energy that really pulled me. And I have to say, like, I'm kind of introverted, right? So I'm good behind the camera and from a distance. Yeah. So in person, I'm just not the person who's going to be like, hey, how are you? Next time, maybe now, right? But
right.
So I wouldn't have probably gone up to you anyways, but I was like, there's something about this guy. I don't know what it is, but I need to know who he is, right? And then,
cool.
You know, you're very recognizable too. So when I, you know, put it together online, I was like, oh my God, he's awesome. Like,
usually she does this. She's like, who is that guy? Go say hi. Hi. and then, yeah. So it's kind of funny how that works. We work that kind of team thing because I'm really comfortable with just going and up to somebody and saying, hey, how are you doing? And being able to genuinely look in the eye and shake their hand and build a rapport, right? So that's why I find it fascinating behind the camera and behind when you're online, how that is quite difficult to do, you know? And so I admire the fact that you have the ability to weave it. And it's not just the copywriting, the writing part, but then it's the music and then it's the actual visual. So it's really not, it's far more complex to create that overarching narrative or be able to see it in your, the vision for it and kind of weave it and make that happen. Right. I was going to ask you, like, how did you pivot? Like, you basically had this, you know, direction arc related around pro sports and basketball. And then you just like did this, you know, and I mean, you know, crushing it. So it's like, how did you go from there to here? It's usually you go, okay, I'm going this direction.
Yeah. So, you know, I've played basketball since I was 8, and it's funny, if there was like an odometer, I'd like to know how much distance I've covered, you know, running up and down basketball courts my whole life. It's funny. After I played in the CBA and the ABA for some teams here in Salt Lake, both of the franchises like ended up going under. All sorts of fun stuff where I put tons of hours and stuff in and didn't get anything really out of it aside from, you know, exercise 3 hours a day and, you know, that kind of stuff, which was good. But at the time that happened, I had, our oldest was about 2 or 3. So she was really young, and we had just moved into like our first home. It was a townhouse. And I just kind of had that moment where I'm like, I was working at a 9-to-5 job while I was doing the basketball stuff, and just kind of juggling things. But then it kind of got to the point when that second team went under, I just had that moment where I'm like, do I want to, because the Denver Nuggets at the time were really bad. This is like the bad that led them to getting Carmelo Anthony bad, right?
Yeah.
And that's just a 5-hour drive or so from where I live. And they had a free agent, like, open camp where people from anywhere could just come show up and practice or try out for the team. And so I show up, or I was deciding if I wanted to go to that or what I wanted to do now. And I just had that, a lot of us entrepreneurs see it, but like, we're programmed in a way by society to be like, be responsible, have a regular job, you have a family, you need to take care of them. And I just came to the point where I'd put a lot in, and I kind of felt like I had reached the end of that journey. So I just went back into my career, my job, my day job or whatever. And so I hung up the shoes. I still play pickup ball and stuff like that, but I, don't play competitively anymore. I know I've got the dad bod to go along with it. So like, the kind of struggle there, but for me, going through working for companies, like I worked for this company and I was the purchasing manager. They refurbished like CAT scan machines, that kind of stuff. And I did all the purchasing for the company of parts and supplies. And I developed the whole systems on my own and made this new department. It was going really well, but I felt like I'd reached as high as I could get with that they were going to let me. Like I kind of reached that ceiling within that company.
Yeah.
So I left that and basically was chasing a payday where I got, I got a raise to where I was making like $42,000 a year or something. I was like, ooh, I'm making more money, but I was doing something I had zero interest in. I was just chasing a paycheck. Right.
Yeah.
So I left a company that I'd been with for 6 years and was comfortable in my systems and things like that because I didn't feel like I was being challenged and I wasn't going to have opportunities to grow.
Yeah.
And so I went to this new company, and then 7 months later, I got laid off. So after that, I went through 6.5 months of unemployment trying to get, figure out what to do and find employment. And from there, I became a financial advisor. And I'm a people person. I love talking to people and like sitting in people's living rooms and just talking and getting to know them. Like if I could do that all day, every day, that's what I would do. Right.
Yeah.
So I did that as an advisor, and I was successful. I was in a partnership and things were going awesome, but it got to the point where two of my partners, who were father and son, decided they wanted to go on and just carry on what they were doing, just the two of them. And I had to restart my practice 3 years in, and it was just I say it's a death sentence. I failed. That's what it really boils down to. I had a whole year of trying to figure things out. And during that year, I had like $100 paychecks, and, I made, I think that year, it was like $15,000 is what I ended up making that year, trying to reboot my practice. And, it kind of got to the point where I knew, I saw the writing was on the wall, and I was going to get fired because I wasn't going to hit my sales quota or that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And, I've always tinkered around with video cameras when I was a kid. I remember we had the old RCA shoulder camcorder with the VHS tapes, if you remember those old school ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. We always play around with them.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, you're like 19 years old, so this is a history lesson for you.
It's actually 20. No.
But it's like making little video reports for my school things is how I like to do things. Or me and my friends would make mock episodes of Cops where I do the camera work, and like we'd go over to a friend's house, drive over, and like just dinking around with the camera, right? So it got to the point where I knew financial advisor, that wasn't what I should be doing anymore. And so I said, you know what, you've always had this hobby and people say you're good at it, so why don't you just jump in and see what you can make out of it. So that's at the starting of 2015 is when I started the video production stuff full time. And, I remember the very first project I ever did, like I charged somebody $250, and I was like so scared that they were going to say no, that was too expensive, and that's how it is whenever you start something. You're like, the thing with creatives is it's not really seen as a valuable skill set to a lot of people, or at least that's how I viewed it. People thought it's a hobby and you're not going to make a lot of money doing it. And so gradually time went on and it got better, but through just working my butt off, I just wanted to build up a reel and just get experience and get practice and get my technical stuff down with the camera. Just that led to an introduction to the news. And I shot freelance for them almost full time that whole summer. And then being a one-man band, doing lighting and camera and editing and doing the interviewing and all those things that come with doing it all on your own, I wanted to see what it was like to work on a crew. So that's how I got into film. My first day on an actual film set, I was carrying water bottles across the park all day and then just handing them out to the cast and crew. I wasn't paid, I just like wanted to be on set and see how it worked. And through that, I made a bunch of introductions and they invited me back. And by the end of that movie, I came on like halfway through. By the end of that movie, I was working on the camera department, I worked on doing the slate, that type of thing. And was doing all sorts of stuff and getting paid. So it was just a cool thing. And from then I just went full on into film. And now I've taken all the technical stuff and the people that I know, and now I'm helping people, find and tell their own stories now that I really have learned from masters. Like I've worked with 3 Oscar winners and Emmy winners and just all sorts of stuff. The Harmon brothers, So I've worked with people who know how to tell a good story. And so now I want to help people do that themselves. So.
And you probably, from your previous experience, like working, selling, right? You went on the set and you could already kind of communicate and rapport build with all these people that really you needed to. There's probably people that go on a crew, or I know I have a friend who lives in Calgary that has done that. He keeps moving water You know what I mean? Like, you know,
Yeah.
so taking all of your past experience and bringing it to this so that you can actually elevate and grow in an area that you've obviously had passion since you're, you know, really a kid, right? Which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, for the longest time, like I mentioned, I'd done music and all this other stuff. I tried really hard for like a year or two to get an inroads in music and performing live. But I look back at my old, like, you know, the Facebook memories where you can see your old posts. And I look at some of them where I'm like, oh man, I just did an awesome show. And you know, I made like $50, but I'm like, I wish I could do this for a living. I wish there was a way I could make a living with my creative abilities. At the time, I didn't really think it was a realistic thing that I could, but now obviously I know that it totally is. But the real trick, especially with any entrepreneurial venture, whether it's artistic or whatever, is that, you know, you got to put in the work and put in the miles. Like, I started off as an unpaid water distributor, right? Yeah. Like, as a 35-year-old with 4 kids, you know, people could look at that as a step down and going backwards, right? But in order to do that, or in order to get to where I am now, I had to do some cracking and start. But like, just work ethic and stuff like that is where it makes and breaks you.
I think it's so important to say that. We talked about this ourselves earlier, where, you know, from an outsider looking in, people very easily just see, you know, the end result, or online sometimes the highlight reel, and they think, oh, they're just talented, or oh, they're just good at that. They don't see the blood, sweat, and tears and the passion and all of that stuff behind the scenes that you go through, right? And a lot of people wouldn't carry those water bottles, you know, and they're going to stay in the same chair, right? No, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but you have to, you really do, right? And it's not that you had it figured out necessarily at the time either, but it goes back to, you know, probably that inner voice. There's a calling of something that, you know, you have your eye on, or something's telling you, tapping you on the shoulder, right? This is the direction you need to go. So get that guy some water, Nick.
Isn't it like Gary Vaynerchuk one time said, you know, about being an overnight success? He's like, yeah, you know, it took 15 years to be an overnight success, right?
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
I'm assuming your wife is very supportive for you to do this pivot to where your passion was. You know, the family support is huge, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that at all?
I always like to talk about the wives a little bit. So how is she involved with you or not? Or I know she's a support. So
right. So this July we'll have been married 16 years.
Wow.
No, 17 years. This July. And she's a saint. She's an angel on earth. Like, to go for, like, every change that I've had, there's never once been like a stressful freak out. What are we gonna do? You know, or while other people in maybe my extended family or neighbors and stuff would see what I'm doing, and knowing that I'm not making a lot of money and I've got 4 kids, being like, why doesn't he just like stop being selfish and go get a real job, you know, that kind of thing. She has never once been like that. Like, when I got laid off, especially, I waited till I got home that day to tell her. I didn't want to like give her that phone call and let her think about it all day. But the thing, like, after we had that conversation, like, 2 things happened. One, like, when the layoff actually happened, it was like a sense of relief. I was like, oh, like, I felt so much better for some reason, even though the future was unknown. But her response to it was just like, well, what do we do next? I know we can figure this out. So let's move forward, kind of a thing.
That's awesome.
She's a quiet, reserved type. Like, once you get to know her, she comes out of her shell, right? But
we get along awesome.
Yeah. So, but then, like, you know, going through 6.5 months of unemployment because I wanted to really do something that I wanted instead of just get a job really quick. I was really trying to find what I wanted to do. And then to have like the success, like where we made more money than I had before as a financial advisor, to have all of that taken away, and life happening. And like, currently we're still like renting an in-laws basement, right? Because we're just still building things up. But not once has she complained or been like, come on, get your crap together, Nick. You know, like she's just like, I trust in what you're doing, and I believe in you and what your vision is. So whatever I can do to support. So, you know, with 4 kids, like now they're all out of school. So it's, you know, I used to work on the kitchen table, but now the kids are off school. So I've like migrated into our room, and I'm using my wife's like sewing desk as my office right now. But she just like she took the kids out to get Slurpees, right? Yeah. When she knows that I have something going on that I need to focus on, she's like amazing at, you know, supporting and making it possible so that I really can concentrate and get things done, which I know that I'm super lucky, and that's not the case for a lot of people that get into these types of stressful situations that can cause a lot of problems. But I totally
it is cool. Yeah, it is cool just how culture has changed to accommodate that. It's, you know, you're in a meeting and somebody's in Starbucks and they're video conferencing, and you know, like our global, like our world, everything, you know, the business I was involved in before, it's like, okay, we need to have the corner office, and you need to have a boardroom, and you need to have this, and you need to have that. And that's kind of the way things were. And today, I mean, we're doing the balancing too. We have a child that's doing somersaults not far from here right now, you know, and so the work-life balance type of thing. And it's pretty cool. And it's awesome that it's incredible that she supports you that way. And that's the way, you know.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to just talk about with you about creativity, because I can tell you're a creative guy. You have to be, you know, to be doing what you're doing and be good at it. And you said you play music and stuff. I actually am also a very creative person. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that there's anything that can't be done. And my head is like, if you were to picture my head as, you know, let's say a motorcycle is doing burnouts like all day long, right?
Yeah, just to give you an example, when I first met her, like a couple weeks in, she sends me a picture, and it's basically the Rapunzel scene where the guy's like got his arms up trying to go onto the hair, and the blonde's hair is billowing down, and then she's got a caption, and it says, "No way, Ed, these are expensive extensions." You know what I mean? And she did this all in paint. Like literally it was like, I was just like, brain.
At the time I was in my corporate job board, so I had to, you know, whatever. Yeah. But, you know, like sometimes, you know, especially like being a creative mind and being an entrepreneur, like for me has its struggles sometimes. Like I have to really try and rein myself in and balance, and, you know, not to chase that squirrel, I guess. Did we show it to you? In a certain way. And squirrel, you know, but earlier, sorry, I'm going back in topic here, but when you're talking about you know, doing videos and whatnot, and it's not always about the money. I think as creative minds, we can be perfectionists sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
So one thing that I'm really learning and trying to get better at is, you know, implementing, just do it, and you can fix it and make it, you know, better later in a sense, which is, you know, why this podcast has come to light. And I'm like, okay, we're going to interview people now because we need to add more. And, you know, so like, what's your take or experience on that? Or if you have any advice or how you deal with it? Because I'm sure you have the same struggles.
Absolutely. So for me, my brain has always been like, I always come up with ideas, and I'll start going on something, and then something else will come that I think might be better, or I get an idea and I say, okay, I'll come back to that. I'm trying to focus on this. And then I either forget about it. Like I always ask my wife, I'm like, remember when we were talking the other day, like what was that thing, you know? So I totally get the having lots of things flying through your head. It's funny, as I've grown in my business and what I'm doing with companies and stuff, it's a lot easier to focus on other people's, on exterior projects, getting results for other people as opposed to myself. Right. And so I'm trying to find where that disconnect is happening, because I just finished a project for a company here in Utah that does like jet turbine engines, and they absolutely loved it. And honestly, I think the key that made that one so easy is that I found people. This is really one of my first where I hired a bunch of different technicians to handle different aspects of it, as opposed to having my fingers in all of it. Yes. in a way. And so when it comes to my creative ideas now that like the Trello system that you guys know about, and if anyone that's listening doesn't know, go check it out. But like, it's a good way for task management to prioritize things. And that has really helped me to see the checklist items that I need to get done. And also there's a place where I can just dump all of my ideas so that I don't get sidetracked and I don't forget them later. That's been a huge thing for me to now be able to utilize. But honestly, if you can find, whether it's your spouse or business partner or whatever people that you have access to, family members, friends, if you have people that you trust and you can share your ideas with, it's so powerful for somebody like me that says, oh, I'm going to do this and do this and do this. If I just keep that to myself, there's no accountability to it. Like if I forget, then, oh, I forgot, it's no big deal. But if you share that with people and let them know what your intentions are and what you'd like to do, like going through this coaching program that we met through, I've shared it with my family, my kids, where I am on my steps. And my 8-year-old every day, he's asking me like, did you check off another box today? Like, awesome. I went through last night and I showed him the stuff. So I think for me and my creativity and how my brain flies around from squirrel to squirrel is that if I share the ideas and the things that I need to get done with people, they help hold me accountable. Yeah. So if you can find somebody or something, whether it's a system or a person, to be that for you, like you'll start to really get a lot of more direction and traction in the direction that you're going. And
it helps you get it out too, right? Like for me, sometimes there's so much, I literally feel like I'm going to spontaneously combust. Right? Yeah. We actually, because of it, have a whole wall in our basement that we did in a whiteboard, because I don't typically write notes either. I draw, right? Like, cause I'm visual. So I'm very like, okay, this means that. And but I have to get it out. Notebooks are too small. I can't.
And I'm a list guy. I'm like, let's make a list. She's like, no list.
How do you translate picture to list?
Yeah, no list. What are you doing? Put that down.
Actually,
I'll be like, I need a list. Like I gotta write it down. And yeah,
I'm learning that I need to stop fighting the list thing, because I
even going to the grocery store.
I hate it. I'm just like an improver. Like I like, I don't know.
Like, get me Captain Crunch. Oh, I'm not taking a list. And then the Captain Crunch doesn't make it back. No.
I always say sorry.
Sorry, it wasn't on the list. Well, you didn't have a list. Okay. All right, whatever. You just delete Wheaties. I'm just teasing. But yeah, it is. It's fascinating,
I love that you involve your kids as well. So that's one thing that, I don't know. I don't know if you even know this about me, but I actually, when I decided to leave my corporate job after 15 years, I was going to stay home with my kids after my son came. And I started a business, which at the time I think was more of a hobby for me, and it was self-discovering and whatnot. So I started an online women's clothing boutique, and it grew into a business. And I started on my phone using Facebook, right? And it's named after my daughter. And I was, at the time when I started it, it was just, I really wanted to involve my children, right? I wanted to have something that I could have for me at home, that I could feel independent, and I was contributing financially, also a creative side to let out, but to involve my kids through the process. Both of my parents were entrepreneurs or are entrepreneurs, but I wasn't really exposed to the business side of things. So I want my kids to just see that this is, an option or another lifestyle if it is something that you choose to want to do. So, when my daughter was helping in the boutique, she had a desk. And she's like, yeah, I'm in charge, right? And she just put stickers on stuff. But there are ways that you can involve them, like you do with the checklist. So I really like that. And I think I saw that on Facebook. We might copy you on that.
Well, and so for me, my dad's a firefighter, but he's always had entrepreneurial ideas and that spirit. But his thing that I remember growing up, he had businesses that he started, but then just the follow through, it never materialized into something that he could really make a living off of. And so one thing that I've tried to do with my kids and my family is, when I have an idea, I share it with them. When I get a check, like when I get a $25,000 check or something like that from a client, from something, I show that to them and I say, look, like I never knew what my parents made growing up. And that's a thing that everyone thinks of it differently, but like I want to be open and say, like, all this work that you're seeing me do, see this, that this is what it's for. And this is what I want to do with it. And this is how I want to improve our lives. But then to also involve them in the process as much as they want, so that they can learn that, you know, if they don't want to become a technician or something like that, or an attorney or a doctor or anything really, that if there's something that they love and they're passionate about, that they can make it happen and make it a reality. So that's one thing I've wanted to really instill in my kids as I've really jumped into this entrepreneurial world, that is that, like, I'm doing something that a lot of people that I used to work with, they'd see what I'm doing, like, no, there's no way. That's just a hobby. Like, there's no way you can do that.
It. I know.
You're full of it, right? And so I want to show them that, yes, you can do it. If you want to write stories and create video games or whatever it might be, like, you can do it. Like, put your mind to it and learn all you can about it. But you can do it. And that's so the thing that I struggled with when I started this business was, I was focusing on becoming really good technically at what I did, and then meeting people, right? Yeah, building my network. So I was like, I'm working hard at getting good at what I do and meeting people. And it was through a conversation with Russell Brunson where he said, I know what you're focusing on. And if you do a couple things, I'll tell you, you know, some things to do to change it. And it was all making that shift of like, okay, you have the technical skills and you know people, but you don't know how to make money. Right. I didn't know how to make a living doing what I did. And so, like, you in the little thing that you said, the email you sent me before this, where it talked about like, what's your biggest win? For me, it was just like you said, listening to that voice, knowing that I could do what I wanted, and that I could follow my passion and make a living and support my family, and, you know, help and inspire and uplift others along the way. That's just listening to my inner voice saying that I could do it. That's my biggest win. And I think for anybody who might be listening to this, who is on the fence or like in that portion of the journey where things kind of stuck and, you know, trudging through and figuring stuff out, like, don't give up on it. Push as hard as you can and do everything in your power to make it happen. And it's still, if it doesn't happen, you gave it everything that you had. And you can never be ashamed of that. Yeah.
You don't know until you try. And, you know, like me and him, we both had our own businesses and had successes and ups and downs and whatever in that. So, but we're kind of at the beginning of the journey of exactly what you're talking about, starting over again together. And, you know, it is scary, but it's every time, you know, we let our minds, because that's the biggest thing here, go there. We're like, there's no way or reason why, you know, this won't work unless God decides something different, you know, because we have what it takes, right? And that's it. That's the end of the story. And I don't need to know. I don't need to know the next chapter, but we're going to go with it. And we're going to do what feels right for us and what our voices tell us. So I think it's so important. And I just love being in that space in my life right now where I finally am recognizing that and listening to myself. And I think he's starting to also listen to my voice, which is good, but no, I'm just kidding. It's not that. It's, you know, it's a two-person thing here, and we have a lot at stake, right? Like we have our marriage, we have our children. You know, we both come from separated families and whatnot, and we want to break some cycles here, right? And make some changes. So it's something we're very passionate about. And in business, we want to help other families also, you know, realize that there are ways you can take stresses off yourself and make things easier, whether it's through, you know, software or whatever it is, right? So it's so cool.
One thing I'd like to say that I admire what you have done, Nic, is kind of like Anthony Robbins says, you know, if you want to take the island, you got to burn the boats. You know, And you really did do that, whether, you got laid off and you're like, because somebody would have, most people, the majority would just go and now find something else and trudge along, right? And you're like, no, I'm going to work on my craft and the things, and then listening to your inside voice. It's like really cool.
Yeah. Well, and to that same point, when it came to the point when I wanted to jump in on doing the video stuff full time and the storytelling, some people did ask like, well, that's cool, but why don't you get like a job and then work on that on the side? I'm the type that if I have to jump in both feet and burn the boat so that I have all my focus on this. I've had my focus here, and then I have a family and all these other stuff. Like that's going to go to the wayside. I'm going to focus on the thing that's bringing me money right now. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so for me, and not everybody's personality is that way. Some people need that side hustle and that's how they do it. And that's totally fine. But for me, I definitely had to burn the boats and jump in because I'm a sink or swim kind of guy. Luckily I'm tall so I can reach the bottom of the pool a lot of times.
I hate water, but if you were in the pool, I'd go in. Okay. You saved me, right?
But it's just one of those things that with basketball, the reason I was successful is I had coaches and like I did what they told me, and that's why I was successful. And to start out my business, like I just had my own guts and instincts. So I just like, I'm going to listen to those and do what it tells me and see, and then go from there. And so as it's built and now I'm able to interface with a lot more people and get input and feedback and coaching and things like that. It's just really ramping up from here. But like you said, yeah, burn boats, take the island. If you have that escape route, then it's always going to be in the back of your mind as a safety net. And
so then you're not actually really, giving it all. So would you be able to give us kind of like one tip for our listeners, something like that you've learned, because you've gone through this incredible journey and arc and following your gut and passion. And so we're just interested if you have something you want to share.
Yeah. The biggest piece of advice or a tip that I can give to anybody with any business is like, don't let your mind talk you out of things. Your mind is there to help you analyze things, but like if your heart tells you to go call this person or to reach out to this person or to change your product or whatever it is, if your heart tells you to do something, do it. Like every success that I've had throughout my entire life, but especially in business, has been from following my heart and not letting my mind and the fear that creeps in talk me out of it. So reaching out to certain people, like through this coaching program that we met through, some of the people that I've reached out to, like I've just had the thought like, hey, send them this message today. Yeah. And like, while some of them haven't translated to like immediate business, I know it will at some time, but like you'd be surprised. It's not surprising really when I get the message or the response back to be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that today or how much it meant to get that little video message from you today. Yeah. Doing that, like leading your business with your heart has been something that's been discouraged and kind of seen as a weak thing. I think in society. So if you can lead with your heart and connect with people, everything that business especially is relationships. Yeah. If you want good relationships, you lead and you follow your heart. Like, think of when you're dating somebody, or that leading up to that first kiss or proposing or whatever it is, those milestones, like that fear and those butterflies that you have, there's like, oh no, I don't want to put myself out there because I don't want to get hurt or whatever. But we follow and trust our heart and amazing things happen, right? Yeah. So why not also do that with your business?
Yes.
Lead with the heart.
We've literally had this kind of conversation even probably today, right? Where you're and I guess I'm having maybe a bit of an epiphany. It's the people, if you're following your heart and you're communicating that and they're not connecting with you, then they're probably not the client you want anyways, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Ultimately.
And, like our podcast is kind of about that because I just see so many parallels between, business, partnerships. We talk about like he has a business partner, but now like we're partners, but we're we're partners, married. Like there's just so many parallels, and it goes all the way back to relationships every time, right? Even if you're not in business or an entrepreneur and you're listening, you know, relationships with your team at work or your coworkers and all of that kind of stuff. It all translates the same, the message.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I keep saying that.
Love it.
Love it.
Our little guy does that. He goes, I love it.
That's like talking like him.
Her nuances.
I can't help it. I've been home for 4 years, okay? I talk to 4-year-old.
Yeah. So one of the questions we always love to ask is, what's your superpower? Like, what do you know, that's can be a hard one, but.
Yeah. So my superpower is I connect with people like really fast. I can build a rapport and connection with somebody in minutes. And it's just crazy. Like throughout my whole life, that's been the case. It hasn't just been, you know, the last couple of years as I've been doing this. Like, so by being able to connect with people, they open up, and people have shared experiences in their life or from their life with me that are just super powerful and amazing things that have affected my life. And so having that ability and that gift, which it really is, it's not something that I really developed or said like, I want to really connect with people and I studied it. It's just something that I've always been able to do. And by being able to harness that and then combine it with the skills that I have with storytelling, like it's been amazing to see. Like there's nothing better than me working with somebody on a story, and I go and I film and I do all the stuff, and then I edit the story together. And I'm either crying while, you know, putting it together, or my cheeks hurt from smiling so much. But then like when I send it off to them and they watch that first like rough cut after I've kind of gone through things, and they're just like,
wow,
their mind is blown. Like to know that I can have that effect and help people like shed those tears about their own story when they watch it. Like that's super lucky that I have that. And so connecting with people, that's my superpower.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's so awesome. And as you were saying that, I was like, it really is. And I think it's good that you know that, but it's actually beyond you. Because what I said earlier about, you know, you have this aura about you that drew me to you, where it was like, yeah, I don't know. It's really cool. And I do feel that exactly with you. So
that's cool.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So do you have any questions for us?
This is one that I've been thinking a lot about, because I've listened to some of your previous episodes and those things like that, and just seeing what you guys are doing. Like, what was the thing that finally caused you both to be like, okay, like we've had our own thing. It is time for us to unite and go together. What was the catalyst? What was the thing that made you make that shift?
For me, it probably just not happy where I'm at and not fulfilling my why or even identifying with it, you know. And I would say Krista's been the catalyst for that. She's like, hey, there's a better way to do things and feel fulfilled and not feel like you're just in the grind and kind of burnt out. I think that would be you know, where we've had many discussions over a long period of time about this. And then we said, you know what, let's do this.
Well, I was fortunate that when I left the corporate world and started, you know, staying home with my kids, I did a lot of self-exploring in the last 4 years. So through the boutique, I did a lot of that kind of stuff. And that's when I recognized that, you know, I was impacting people as well without meaning to, right? And it was just so powerful. And it was like, okay, this is what drives me, right? I'm not motivated by money. Yes, we all need it. And I like nice things and whatever, but that's not what drives me. Now, when I was in my corporate job, you're so caught up in the grind that you don't even have time to necessarily self-explore and all that stuff, especially with family. You come home, you're tired and all that. So to some degree, like he was out there, you know, running the business and stuff, and I was home and I was doing all this self-exploring, and then he got to be a part of it. Like every Christmas, I go to the Ronald McDonald House and I donate a shopping spree to the moms of the house, right? And it's just a selfless thing, and, you know, and the family, and he just, I guess he started to see too,
Yeah.
you know, like, okay, wow, like what you put out there comes back, and you don't have to just chase every client because they're draining you, man. Like, you know.
Well, and I want to talk to this for just a few seconds, but literally the shopping spree event she put on at the Ronald McDonald House. And if you know anything about it, it's all these families that are in duress. They have a sick child and they're staying in this home and they're being supported. So Krista, out of the bottom of her heart, is giving a shopping spree to each mom, and in fact the grandmas as well. And so 2 years ago, she found these necklaces that were inspirational. It was like, you know, she believed she could, so she did, and she wanted to give them as well. And in my mind, I was like, oh, you're like,
we're giving costing money.
This is like, costing more money, right? Like, yeah. So anyway, she was giving these out as well as the shopping spree, and then, you know, months later, we get this video from a lady, and I think this is actually a bit of a turning point for me. And so we get this video from this lady, and she's recording and she's talking about how her, you know, she got the necklace. In fact, one of the only good shots we have from her being at the Ronald McDonald House, you know, helping the moms, happened to be this lady, this mom. And she said, you know, days later, her child passed away. And she then said, you know, that necklace was the anchor for me. It was, or the anchor for her. Like, she'd look in the mirror and say, and read it and go, you know, this is, I have to, strength. This is how I have to be a strong wife. I have to be a strong mom for my other children. And it really helped me through. And it's one of those videos where it's so raw, and you get the hair on the back of your neck and your back and the shiver. And I went, and then Krista turns to me, she says, that's why I do this, right? And I went, oh, like, it was like a light bulb went off. It's like, I'm not, you know, she was fulfilling her why.
Like, we were both
people.
crying. We didn't even meet. It was so unexpected. And it was like,
and then just like the thousands of women that have reached out to her from her, not just selling product, but trying to connect with people and give them inspiration to better their lives and to connect with them. You know, she has an army of these ladies that love her, right?
But so I think, like, for me, what I've realized in that process as well is that what I fell in love with and what I like is helping people. Yeah. So the boutique is just another platform. Do you know what I'm saying? So now it's like, I want to go another level and help families.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's awesome.
That's so cool.
Hopefully we answered.
No, that's
and then
like, okay, all right.
No, that's the thing that's awesome is that, you know, it maybe the thing that changed isn't exactly what you're doing, like, in your business. It's just like everyone has those moments that put you on just like a little change in degrees in your journey, right? Yeah. And just by a matter of 2 or 3 degrees, your final destination and impact can be huge. You don't have to always make these huge, like, drastic changes. Like, you just do little shifts, and as you go, like, the effect and the impact that you guys have had in the families of those people from the Ronald McDonald House, like, you didn't, you know, they didn't become clients and give you lots of money or that kind of stuff. But
never expected it.
And it wasn't
the purpose of it.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't the purpose, but it puts you on that path to be able to be prepared to listen to that call when it came, that internal call. And you like, I think was it Myron Golden talked a little bit about that, like how we all have a calling in this life. We have a purpose and stuff, but how many of us listen and accept it when it comes? And so by qualifying yourselves, by doing those other things, it's led you to this awesome new thing. And the impact that you're having on people's lives and businesses and their families and stuff is huge, because you're combining your strengths together and just like multiplying it by, you know, your individual awesomeness is now like, you know, 10x because you combine forces. So good on you for doing it. That's so cool.
Thank you so much. So, Nic, can you tell us how our listeners or viewers, because God knows where this is going to end up, can get a hold of you?
So right now I'm in the process of building my website. I have something that I just threw together, but friendlygiantfilms.com. is my website, but you can find me on Facebook. And then I'm actually going to be launching a podcast in the near future called Funnel Stories Podcast. Mm-hmm. So those are some ways that you can find me. But yeah, just I accept friend requests and things like that. So like whatever I love making friends. So
okay, I'll send you a friend request.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. But it's just one of those things where any way you can find me, just reach out and say, hey, I'm happy to be a support and a resource in any way. Even if like you're wanting to tell your own story and you use somebody else to implement and go thing, like I'm happy to be a resource and help people, because that's just what it all really boils down to. So whatever I can do to help you or anybody that's watching or listening to this, never hesitate to reach out. So
thank you. So awesome. We appreciate it so much.
This was great.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's been cool.
All right. Well, we will definitely be in touch. And yeah, thank you. Have an awesome day.
You're welcome. Thanks. You too.
And tell your wife she's awesome.
I will for sure.
Bye.
See ya.